Alright guys, welcome back to Urge. We're moving on in the subclass series into the Way of the Sun Soul Monk. Right. So if you're new to the subclass series or to the channel, what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of these subclass abilities, and then we're going to rate the roleplay value, combat value, and overall class synergy based on how the subclass abilities improve on the base class.
Right.
So without any further ado, we're going to jump straight into it.
Alright, so starting off, level 3, you get Radiant Sunbolt. You get a new attack option that you can use as part of the attack action. The special attack is a ranged spell attack, the range of 30 feet. You're proficient with it, and you add your dexterity modifier both to its attack and a damage roll. The damage is radiant, and the damage die starts out as a d4, but it levels with your martial arts die. So as you level, it'll get to d6, d8, and eventually a d10. Also, when you take the attack action on your turn, you can use this special attack as part of it. You can spend one key point to make this special attack 2 more times as a bonus action. And we found some clarification. Everything I saw said essentially, if you wanted to, once you gain, this can replace any attack you use as part of the attack action. So technically, you could weapon attack once you have extra attack at level 5. You can weapon attack, Radiant Sunbolt attack, and then bonus action kick if you want to go flurry of blows and do it twice. Yeah. Or you could actually use this as a flurry of blows replacement and do this as your bonus action twice. Yeah,
that's essentially what the most clarification thing is. Yeah. It says like you can use the key points to make a special attack twice. It's basically just letting you use a flurry of blows, but with the range.
Yeah, with a radiant ranged spell attack versus a melee punch kick, headbutt, whatever. Yeah, easy enough.
Then at level 6, we have Scorching Arc Strike. So with this one, immediately after you take the attack action on your turn, you can spend 2 key points to cast Burning Hands as a bonus action. So normally it takes an action to cast it. So you can use 2 key points, cast it as a bonus action. It's a level 1 spell, 15-foot cone, dex save, 3d6, fire damage. And you can spend additional key points to cast it at higher levels. So each additional key point you spend increases the spell's level by 1, but there is a caveat. The maximum number of key points that you can spend on the spell equals half of your monk level. So, for example, level 6, you want to cast your Burning Hands. You make attack, action, boom, boom, extra attack, get your 2 hits in, bonus action, do your Burning Hands. It takes 2 key points to cast it. And then if you wanted to upcast it, you could use a 3rd key point, being at level 6. 3 is the most key points you can spend on the Burning Hands attack here. So you would cast a level 2 Burning Hands, and that's the most you could do at level 6. Mm-hmm. So at level 8 then, you could use 2 key points to cast it, and then you could upcast it for 2 more key points. So 4 total key points, which is half of the 8.
Right.
It's a little bit weird how they worded it, but that's essentially what it is you can use half of your level, but you have to include the 2 points initially to cast it as part of that half.
The total number spent, including the 2, is part of that total math there.
Right. And then at level 11, we have Scorching Sunburst. You can use an action to create an orb of light. So what you do is you use your action. It's not an attack action. It's not a cast a spell action. It is a special action to create an orb. And you can hurl it as part of the action to a point within 150 feet, which erupts into a sphere of radiant light and is a 20-foot radius sphere, forcing a Constitution saving throw to take 2d6 radiant damage. Also, if creatures are behind total cover, or it says if they are behind cover that is total and opaque, they don't need to make it, as it's kind of like a light burst. So if they're not able to see it and they're covered by something, then they don't have to make the save. But you could just throw it behind them or whatever if you're able to. So 20-foot radius is pretty big radius here. But it is 2d6 radiant damage, and you can actually spend key points up to 3 to increase the damage by 2d6 per key point. Yep. So you could, as an action, cast it. It's 2d6 to all creatures within the range. And if you wanted to, for whatever reason, use 3 key points, make it 8d6 instead, because it's 2d6 per key point. So 6d6 additional could be added. Up to 6 additional d6 could be added to the damage.
So for a total of fireball. So you do a full 3 key points, you're casting a radiant fireball.
Yes. Except it's con save, and it's not half damage. It's either all or nothing. Right. It doesn't specify taking half damage on save.
Right.
So they're either taking it all or taking none of it. But it is what it is. It gives you another option at a further range outside of the 30 feet for your little. I just picture someone punching fire, shooting out. Like some Liu Kang stuff going on. But
At level 17, you get Sun Shield. You shed bright light in a 30-foot radius and additional dim light for 30 more feet. You can extinguish or restore this light as a bonus action. So if you don't want to be you're essentially a walking light bulb all the time. If you would like to end that, try to be like, oh, we're trying to be stealthy and sneak up on somebody. Let's not be a walking lamppost. You can turn that off as a bonus action. If a creature hits you with a melee attack while this light shines, you can use your reaction to deal radiant damage to the creature. The radiant damage equals 5 plus your wisdom modifier. So another reason to make sure your wisdom stays higher maybe than you would normally have it, or might be in consideration. It gives you a much more reason to keep it up closer to what your decks would be already for your offensive purposes. To just for free all the time, just anytime you get hit, to go ahead and pop somebody back. It's like, here, get blinded by the light every time you hit me for something. So no cost, key points or anything. Yeah. But it's not a ton of damage, but it is just free extra passive damage all the time.
Yeah, and they just take it. There's no rolling for it. They just take the damage. Nope. So with that being said, we'll move into the rating section of the video. First up is the roleplay value, and again, disclaimer as always. Yep. When we're looking at the roleplay value, what we're looking at is the mechanics of the subclass based on how you're interacting with NPCs, interacting with the world, avoiding combat and non-combat counter scenarios. That's what we're looking at with the RP side. We're already anticipating you, RPing your background, lore, history, all that fun stuff. That's not included in the score. We're looking purely at mechanics. And with this subclass, there is literally nothing in the subclass that gives any kind of bonuses for non-combat scenarios. Everything is strictly combat.
Besides just being, you're a walking light bulb if you want to be.
Right.
That's it.
But that's level 17. I mean, at that point, you have access, your party's going to have so much access to everything that's going to be pretty much relevant.
Bingo.
So, we went with the 1 out of 5 for the RP value, just because, again, mechanically, there is not a whole lot going on here to help win the non-combat scenarios.
Pretty much. On the combat side of things, again, if there's not much of one, it's going to be a lot of the other. That's how it is here. Radiant Sunbolt gives you a chance to make a ranged spell attack, which scales with your martial arts damage. And it also replaces your flurry of blows or any attack as part of the attack action. So you're able to hit things at melee and at range at all times within 30 feet for no real damage penalty. Essentially, it scales up very well as far as that goes. You get access to two different AoE spells, essentially. One's a cone at 15-foot range that you can scale with key points. Same thing with Searing Sunburst. It's a big range as far as 150 feet goes. Not a ton of damage, but it also can be scaled with hit points. The drawback there, for that one at least, is a dex save for all or none instead of all or half, like most AoE spells are for casters. They're all or halves. And Sunshield is giving you a chance to passively just do
a little bit,
little rebound damage or retaliatory damage, however you want to say that, just by being what you are. Granted, not a ton of damage, but it is free. So, a lot of stuff here, combat-wise, you get more versatility, more options for your key points, so you can do more AoE damage easier without having to be right there in the thick of things. Most of the rest of the monk stuff, if you want to hit multiple things in a turn for any amount of damage, they've got to be pretty much right there on hand. The only other exception to that being way the Kensei, you take a ranged weapon, you can shoot multiple things in a turn. Besides that, all the other monk subclasses you don't have really options to hit more than one thing unless they're in melee range. With this, you can feel free to roll around, and kind of what Jameson said, this is one of the few subclasses in the game you might actually play as kind of a mid-rangey character.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. It's not
because especially once you hit the part where your Radiant Sunbolt scares up your unarmed strikes, martial arts strikes, or like a D8 and more. Yeah, you can kind of flow back and forth between being in the thick of things when you want to be and being at like a 10, 15, 20 foot range from everything if you want to be. And you're a monk, so you can literally outrun everything in the game unless something teleports to you or slows you in some way because you have unarmed movement. You can just, if there was any subclass / class who could kite something to avoid being killed because you're the last party member alive, and you can just be like, ranged punching things with sunbolts and just outrunning them in a circle or weaving through, bob and weave until you can slowly bring them down, or so you could at least try to. But due to the lack of maybe overall damage output, we went with a 3.5 out of 5 combats. You get a lot of usage, versatility. There's some uniqueness. Made it kind of hard to score, to be honest.
Yeah, this is one of the harder ones we've had to rate,
especially in a long time. Usually on combat, especially with me, I'm since it's the one I get to read most of the time, I can score combat a little easier a lot of times. But This one, it's kind of hard because it's very unique, like James has said, with the whole, you kind of play a mid-range if you really want to.
Which it's kind of strange because you're not getting the full range of like a longbow or another ranged weapon, but you're also not having to be right up in straight up 5-10 foot range,
right?
Which was normal for martial classes. So it's kind of that in between zone, which makes it you're kind of in combat. You have the ability to engage or disengage pretty easily. Being in that kind of middle ground all the time, you kind of like control the central part of the battlefield maybe. But again, you're not going to be putting out tons of damage by any means. And like the con save for the Sunburst is not the best kind of save. It can be definitely good in certain circumstances. But as you get higher levels, con saves are a little bit on the worst side. And also it's an all or nothing save, which is always a little bit of a feels bad if they save and you're like, well, I just wasted my whole turn pretty much doing this thing, nothing happened.
Right.
Which if you're a caster, you know how that feels. So there's that. So you get to get it's kind of like a mix. Like you're almost a caster, but not quite.
Yep.
It's kind of a strange little
I mean, it kind of makes you think of like what an Eldritch Knight or an Arcane Trickster Rogue would be. You're kind of like a third caster without the spell slots.
Right. It's kind of interesting because you can, and you're much
Not
more
just-
limited.
just
You're much
that
more
way.
limited in what you can do too. Because I mean, you're basically casting Burning Hands or your little sunburst ball thing.
Yep. Mini fireball.
Yeah.
Mini sunball.
Definitely not bad, but definitely I think the numbers could be a little bit higher.
Yeah.
On
Especially
damage.
if you can scale it with key points. They probably should scale a little bit higher, maybe.
I think the biggest thing just to throw out here is in combat you're more of like setting the tempo of combat, kind of like the flow of how things are going. You're not really worried about controlling utility wise or dishing out tons of damage. You're kind of staying in the middle of everyone and trying to like someone's dying over here, pop pop pop, try to save them. Someone's dying over there, pop pop pop. Getting some medium range attacks, try to like clean up. You're like clean up duty. I think that's probably what the kind of role you're looking
you
for.
can flow from without having to risk anything in terms of like casters having to risk spell slots,
right.
or get in there and risking your health. Like, so you can help out wherever you want to with no real penalty to your damage because of your ability to move around the battlefield as a monk anyway.
Okay. Then lastly, we have the overall class synergy. Again, the main things with the monk is going to be working with your key points, and your movement and agility, things like that. And that being said, you're getting some uses with your key points with the Sunburst and the Searing Arc Strike. But again, the numbers are a little bit on the lower end here, and we just had to go ahead and give it a 3.5 out of 5 for this, just because again, the numbers could be a little bit better, but it's definitely not hurting. It's kind of a strange. It's like we said, it's kind of a strange subclass to try to rate, just because again, you're going to be more of like maybe cleanup crew tempo setter than having like rogues. They're dishing out the damage.
They're going to burst in there, try to
damage.
remove something from the game very quickly.
And then you have something like the Kensei monks, which are more like a reliable, like steady damage.
Yep.
And this is going to be kind of with that, but it's going to be a lower. It's going to be steady, but it's going to be a lower.
Yep.
And you're not like pumping out tons of damage here and there. You don't have ways to boost it a whole lot other than your Burning Hands thing. But again, dex saves, con saves with your between your two abilities, probably some of the most common saves out there. So you're not going to be probably pumping tons out. But that's going to wrap it up, guys, for this one. If you've ever played as a Way of the Sun Soul monk or played with one, we'd love to hear in the comments down below if you have any stories about your campaigns or anything like that. We always love to hear those. If you enjoyed the video, guys, please remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications for when our new videos come out. And as always, thanks for watching.